Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the brand new for 2023 ZT0545, a new in-house design for Zero Tolerance. We don't get to see nearly as much from Zero Tolerance anymore, so it is nice to see new releases. Thank you so much to ZT for sending this in, or Kai USA for sending this in for me to take a look at. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Depending on when you're watching this video, this knife may or may not be available. I will link it right down below so you guys can check it out if you want to. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Given that this is a new ZT model, expect to see it pop in and out of stock. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Any custom scales you see in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and others. So up against the AD10 and the AD20.5, you can see here this is a smaller knife. It's closer to the overall length of the AD20.5, but is a substantially less robust thing. Obviously, it's smaller than the AD10. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3? Closer to the overall length of the Para 3, obviously, but more cutting edge. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca? Obviously, closer to the Hogue Deca. And I think, let's put it up against the Bug Out. I don't know. I feel like this is where they were going with this, right? Now, there's a lot of companies trying to tackle this size of knife. And I mean a lot. And within those companies, they have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different models tackling this size of knife. So there's a lot of stuff out there that is about this size. We're going to circle back to that. But yeah, it's very similar to the Benchmade Bug Out and the Hogue Deca. How's the action on this knife? It feels like a ZT. This is a compact and thin knife, and the blade stock is very thin, so you're going to feel that in the flipper tab. I will say that if I isolate the detent itself is nice. The pivot action is a tad tight. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of what I experienced with WE knives. This will break in definitely, but the blade isn't super duper heavy, so that's not going to help contribute to a feeling of smoothness, right? But the pivot action itself is actually smooth and consistent. It's just kind of tight. The detent will allow the blade to flip, and honestly, the lock bar is above the show side scale, which means good access to it. Now, you're not going to be able to turn this and catch the blade on the flipper tab, or catch your thumb on the flipper tab and then turn it and drop. You're going to have to let the blade come down and contact your fingernail, which honestly isn't that big of a deal because we have a very lightweight blade, right? But if that bothers you, then you might not want to do it this way. You can turn, let it stop at 90 degrees, get your thumb out of the way, and then put it down. Or you can just use your index finger and do this. This is not the type of knife that is going to be comfortable to push button because of it's because of the shape of the flipper tab and also how narrow it is. So it works. This knife is not going to win any awards for satisfaction of deployment. And honestly, it's not because ZT can't do a good job. It's because the knife is incredibly thin and the flipper tab is really thin and you kind of have to light switch it, right? So I'm not necessarily saying that the action is bad. It absolutely works just fine. I think it's kind of the nature of the beast here, right? But the detent is good and the pivot action is smooth and it's plenty easy to manipulate right or left-handed. But 2023 is like, good action, right? Like expected action in 2023 would have absolutely obliterated our brains back in 2014. And truthfully, that's kind of what this feels like. It kind of feels like, what would have been like 2014 action, I guess. I don't know. I feel like that's going to come off an extreme case for some people, and in other people, it's just not, it doesn't really mean anything, right? But let's go ahead and move on. Let's do carry profile. I have a lot to say, guys. Believe me, we're getting there. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3, it's very thin. In fact, let's put it up against the Bug Out so you guys can see here. It is super thin. I know that these are aftermarket scales, but these are almost exactly the same thickness as the standard Bug Out. It's the same. I don't consider myself like incredibly observant, right? I feel like the average person can go, yeah, it's kind of like ZT was trying to make the Bug Out, which I feel like they've tried to do that a few times. Am I wrong? Don't they have like quite a few small, especially post 2017, don't they have like a lot of lightweight, compact little knives? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I feel like this is where they're going. Carry profile length and height up against the PM2 and the Para 3. Yeah, it's definitely, we did these upside down. It's definitely, like lengthwise, it's about the same as the Para 3, nowhere near as tall, very thin. This is going to be a much easier optic to carry. In fact, the few days that it was in my pocket, there were times where I forgot it was there because not only is it small and, compact, it's also very lightweight and thin. So I had to kind of remind myself, like, yeah, there's a knife in your pocket, don't wash your pants, with the knife still in there. So, but it was very easy and it was very convenient. And honestly, it was very pleasant to carry. I think that's the right way to put that. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. So the pivot, I've already checked it, but I'm going to show you guys. The pivot is a T8, absolutely. And these screws down here are T6. There's two on this side, and what the heck? One here. What's going on? This screw goes all the way through, and these two just go into the standoff. There's nothing wrong with this. That's weird. Usually you see both screws going all the way through or neither. So, okay. The pocket clip nests into the titanium, and there is a separate screw. At first I thought this must have something to do with the pocket clip. Nope. In fact, I'll show you guys. Will I be showing you guys what happened to my flashlight? There it is. Holy moly, that thing. All right. Now, it's fully possible that this is something obvious I'm just missing, and that's fine. But, yeah, that pocket clip screw is right here. So that's not what that is. And then this screw over here, I guess, maybe it does have to do with the other side of the pocket clip, because this, I would imagine maybe there's a separate piece that goes underneath the filler or the standoff there, right? In which case they just wanted some extra security holding in that clip. Maybe that's the reason. Interesting. Either way, the point is it doesn't really matter. It's fine. I mean, the number of steps required to disassemble your knife are still minimal in my book, and I wish they were T8, but you can't always get what you want, right? It's going to be very easy to take apart and maintain your knife and then reassemble it. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. And yes, it absolutely is mountable on the other side. You can see there we have the same nesting zones for lefties. And it's very easy to, I'm a right-handed person. It's very easy to manipulate with my left hand. Let's go ahead and weigh it. This knife is extremely lightweight. We have for titanium, carbon fiber, and MagnaCut. And by the way, the titanium is not milled on the inside. But they've milled a pocket on the outside. Interesting. So I imagine that's how they achieved a nearly 2-ounce carry weight. That in combination with the single piece of carbon fiber that does not have a liner underneath. That's very nearly the base weight of the Bug Out, which is what, 1.8 ounces, 1.78, pretty close. That's a trivial difference there. The big difference for this ZT here is that it is not hollowed out injection mold plastic and S30V. It's MagnaCut, carbon fiber, and titanium, right? That's a lot of people look at that as a huge benefit. And for a lot of people, I think that's completely justified, right? It depends on your perspective there, but I think maybe that's another indicator there that this is what they were going for. And again, maybe that's obvious, or maybe it isn't. Maybe I'm off the mark. That's just what it seems like to me. It's very good ratios. As in terms of carry and convenience, right? All the basic boxes are checked, right? This is basically a series of check marks for like what you expect from your run-of-the-mill, lightweight, compact EDC knife. They did all of those things. Let's go ahead and, speaking of checking boxes, let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness. We have to switch this out to inches because it's dying. The battery's dying, so it's getting all funky. Blade stock thickness coming in at 185 thousandths. Very thin. And the end result is that the cutting edge is also extremely thin. I'm looking for my notepad so I can get a piece of paper and show you guys. So the cutting geometry of this knife, this is a flat ground blade, MagnaCut, which by the way is hardened on their website. It says 60 to 63. Everybody has different opinions on what the optimal hardness for MagnaCut is. I'll quote Larrin Thomas again and say, geometry plays the biggest role in blade performance, coupled with, the appropriate heat treat for both the composition and the geometry, right? So you got it has to be the combination of those things. Now, rather than sit here and debate endlessly about what the absolute optimum Rockwell hardness would be for this exact size of blade and geometry of blade, I'm just going to go ahead and say that I think that that's fine. 60 to 63 is fine. You can think whatever you want. The cutting geometry is good. It slices very readily and it bites too. It's ready to go. Yeah, this is going to do exactly what you would expect it to do. Of course, the benefits of MagnaCut include pretty darn good edge retention, pretty easy to touch up, pretty good toughness, and excellent corrosion resistance. This is an incredibly well-balanced steel, and it's the reason that we see it on a lot of stuff nowadays. It's the new spice, it's the new zest, right? So that right there is an indication that Zero Tolerance is very much aware, because we're getting into it. ZT is definitely a company who's, it's not like they're oblivious to what the enthusiast knife world wants, right? Proof of this is the fact that they're using MagnaCut and still creating and selling a pretty expensive knife, right? Why is this important? Why are you highlighting this? Because moving on into the meat and potatoes here, I am very confused about exactly who ZT is marketing to, right? And on one hand, it's kind of obvious, right? It's like, well, if it's meant to compete with the Bug Out, I mean, the Bug Out is super popular with knife enthusiasts, right? Yes, but it's been tackled, right? And it kind of has its place. I feel like, the bus has left for that. I just feel like it seems like Zero Tolerance has a lot of designs that are similar, and they keep trying to tackle the same zone without really knowing exactly. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe ZT's target audience is much bigger and much different than I think, right? Maybe my audience and the general community that we represent is a much smaller portion of ZT's target audience than we realize. I would be surprised, but maybe I'm wrong, and I'm open to the idea that I'm wrong. I'll circle back to that. Ergonomically, it's about what you'd expect. It's fine, but it's very, very thin. This isn't necessarily a problem with this design. And, we could say problem is the wrong word. It's just the end result of a knife that has a very, very thin frame that's got flat pieces of material that are chamfered at the edge. It feels a little thin, right? It's not necessarily a hand-feeling, ultra-comfortable, experience. It just is what it is. It's not like a design like this is, going to be used ultra, ultra hard. So it's like how hard you're going to be squeezing it and how uncomfortable that's going to be. To me, this is more of an office carry, or just like general EDC, use it for light-duty stuff sort of knife. Now, do I have faith in ZT's current frame locks? Yeah, I mean, that's really all the more I expect any knife to be able to handle. I don't need to take this knife or put this knife in a vise and beat on the end of it with a sledgehammer and have it hold up in order to prove that it's strong enough to handle my extreme I mean, that's an insane test to me, right? I mean, this will hold up enough for what I would expect of it, right? I mean, the craziest thing I'm ever going to do with this knife is get the blade slightly stuck in whatever I'm cutting and then have to wrench it back out. In which case, a little bit of spine pressure testing is appropriate because you don't want it to fold up on your hand. But as you guys can see, it's fine, right? If this were a bigger and more robust knife, then I might expect a bit more of it, but yeah, it's fine. Seriously, it's fine. So circling back to ergonomics, I can't really complain too much that the ultra thin profile is super uncomfortable, right? But just so you know, it's going to be more of a knife that's comfortable to hold like this, or like this, or like this. But hammer gripping it is not the most comfortable thing in the world. The pocket clip is not really in the way. It's very small. I kind of like it, honestly. Just a small rise in the bill. It does exactly what I want it to do. And honestly, the retention is really good. It's a lot of tension, but it's a smaller clip, which is fine. Honestly, I think that's great. Blade profile, like I said, very good. EDC blade profile, flat ground blade. We've got a little bit of a tip here. The cutting bevel is pretty good. There's one kind of weird area where it starts to get a little thicker, right? ZT's not the only company we see that on, but I'm gonna point it out either way. I see that on Spyderco. I see it on Benchmade, right? Honestly, I see it on substantially more expensive American products and Chinese products, right? Circumstantial. You see as many knives as I see, right? And I promise you're gonna see it on almost everything. Some companies you see it a lot less, right? But it's just a little bit here. It's not bad. I've certainly seen worse from ZT. Got a bronze pivot, a couple of black screws, a couple of bronze standoffs. Like I said, pocket clip is for left and right-handed people. We got a lock bar insert that doubles as the over travel stop. Got a stop pin located in its traditional spot. It's important to point out there is some steel under there for the bearings to travel on the carbon fiber side, so you're not directly on titanium or carbon fiber, which is great. Plenty of shouldering, no blade play up, down, left, or right. No, lock rock or anything like that. No lock stick. No pivot lash, consistent enough, a little tight, consistent enough. Nice click into the closed position, and perfect centering with no detent lash. Functionally, it's fine. It's the quality that you'd expect from ZT. And it will work. If you look at this knife and you're like, I just want to know that it's, good quality and that I'm going to be able to take it and use it for normal knife tasks, and I'm a fan of lightweight, compact stuff. I want USA made stuff, and I want something simple. If you just want those basic check marks, then this is fine. This knife costs $272. For me, this is not only extremely underwhelming, but it's just very confusing to me. I don't know why ZT wants to pull away from the more interesting stuff. Right? And now that's very subjective. But if you look back at what ZT used to do, what everybody fondly remembers, it's a lot more of the crazy stuff. And also, let's be fair, a lot of that stuff was a collaborative effort between Zero Tolerance and some other companies. So some of the common but not ultra fair demands from ZT's audience are, why can't you make more stuff, from this maker or that maker? There's a ton of hurdles there. Number one, I mean, you gotta work out some kind of deal. You have to figure out what model you're gonna do. You have to make sure it translates correctly. You have to make sure that there's enough room for ZT and the original designer to make some money. And then you also have to price it in a way that's not gonna make everybody super upset. And on top of that, ZT has to balance the absolute fact that people are primed and ready to take bites out of literally anything they post. Let's be self-aware, guys. Now listen, I like the old ZT as much as everybody else, but it doesn't take a super insightful person to realize that people have their torches and pitchforks at the ready for ZT on social media. They just do. Now some people are in there gaslighting, and other people are just completely and totally unaware of their own behavior. They will go out of their way to criticize ZT for something that plenty of other companies do. There's a number of different things, right? So, just trying to be fair here and understand that ZT is, working against the current. They can't do everything that they used to be able to do. We're in a different things. we're in a different set of parameters now post 2019. I'm not asking for any, crazy arguments. I don't want to get into that. But yeah, I don't know that they have the same, I don't know that they're working with the same tools, right? I will say that the designs have gotten progressively, aggressively less interesting. And again, maybe they have this massive target market and this market is different than myself and the community that I feel like I represent or am a part of. And it's just ravenous. Like there's just people beating down doors. And please make another bug out competitor that is American made and not ultra complicated and, just kind of just has a hint of like the ZT personality, and we will just buy this immediately. Maybe so. I'm honestly not even being sarcastic. Maybe I just don't know. I got to be fair. Maybe this knife just isn't for me. But I don't understand why it seems like there's just not an enormous amount of variety. Like there's a little bit, but it's been so long since I've been wowed by ZT, and it doesn't have to be big. It's not just like make a big knife, right? There's a lot of people saying that. We want a big knife, right? Well, if they make a big knife, then people will complain about something trivial. Case in point, the 0308. Why does it have a hole in it? Everybody got all upset about that, right? I'm generalizing and simplifying, but at the same time, I do sympathize for ZT because it just seems like people will ask for something, and then if ZT gives in a little bit, then people will find something to criticize when it just doesn't even matter. That being said, I think people are going to lock in on the price thing and they're going to complain, and I think part of that is justified because to me, this doesn't feel like a $272 knife. I fully believe that they can make a knife and charge $272 and have it wow people. This just isn't it. This is just incredibly underwhelming. I don't want, personally, there's not much here that I really want to pay $272 for. I feel like I can throw a rock in any direction on the internet knife world and find a similar knife for less money, even if it is made in the United States, right? The competition, even if they're using different materials, I feel like a lot of times it's just a better option. I cannot find again, the build is fine, the quality's there, right? I just can't find a specific reason to buy this over the sea of competition. I'm a huge ZT fan, and I'm still rooting for them. I think they're obviously just not able to put out the same number of knives. They don't have a magic lamp. They can't just put out the same number of knives they used to, right? So we're seeing a lot of, special edition versions of old knives that people liked, right? And they do that. No matter what they do at this point, people are just primed and ready to complain. That's what people are conditioned to do online. Ask yourself, how many times in the last 2 weeks have you criticized something on social media? People don't like to admit it, but we're primed to do that. I do that. I'm doing it right now. But ZT catches a lot of unnecessary heat, I think. So it honestly pains me to not do a super duper exciting review on a new ZT release. But I gotta be honest, I'm just not excited for it. I'm just not super pumped for this. I'm so glad that Kershaw's doing so well, right? It's the same company. It's all Kai USA. I'm really glad that they have Kershaw figured out, at least from my perspective. But it doesn't seem like they know exactly where to go with ZT. And I don't want to see this brand die. And maybe, that's very dramatic and they're nowhere near, dying. Maybe they're just near not being super hailed by our little corner of the knife world. I think a lot of times we like to consider ourselves as like the ultimate, we are the majority and we're like the most potent form. I think we forget that we are still just a small corner of the knife world, right? It's hard looking at this and saying this is a $272 knife made out of carbon fiber, titanium, and MagnaCut. These are materials And these are elements that cater specifically to what I feel like is our corner. But it's just like not landing, you know? Or at least to me, it's very underwhelming. You guys tell me what you think. To me, this is just very underwhelming. So maybe it'll do well, but I feel like this is just so far in the opposite direction when it comes to what people are asking for, right? I don't know. I would like to see ZT not necessarily go back to making, dinosaur thick, dummy goofball knives, right? I mean, I don't want to see that either. But I like some of the in-between stuff. I like the ZT Les George Harpy, right? Obviously, the 0562 is still there. I like knives in that size range. Obviously, personally, I like the ZT GTC, right? These are all collaborative efforts, but if they have to be in-house designs, I would like to see something that's a little bit bigger, not too big, right? But just something that's larger, something more substantial, something that is, a little bit more complicated, right? Even if it just comes down to some nice milling or texturing, right? Or some nice, intricate ano work. I want something that feels a little bit more deserving of a $272 price tag, and certainly something with a little bit more personality. If I was going to grade this thing on, general utility and convenience, sure, great. Personality? Oh my God, this knife has zero personality, and it is extremely forgettable. So, I love ZT, and I'm a huge fan, and I will continue to be a huge fan, but this isn't it for me, and I'm not trying to be, overly mean. I don't get it. So, Kai USA, thank you so much for sending this in, letting me take a look at it. I will absolutely be giving this knife away on a future live stream. It is, like I said, plenty functional, and it'll work. It'll do exactly what it was designed to do. It's just not for me. Anyways, yeah, it'll be linked in the description. If you want to say, hey, Complex, how about you kick rocks? I like it. Hey, no problem. It's linked in the description. You can check it out if you want. Don't let me slow you down. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.